The Shintaro Higashi Show is sponsored by Judo TV, your premier destination for live and on-demand judo coverage. Never miss a throw. Hakuin AI. Hakuin AI helps you measure, predict, and solve customer churn. Visit Hakuin AI and start your free churn audit today. Higashi brand. Train hard, live strong, wear Higashi brand.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Shintaro Higashi Show with David Kim. I just came back from the Junior Nationals, which was a qualifying event for the Junior Worlds. What a spectacular event, David.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know you were heading out there, being the Philistine, the judo Philistine that I am, but I guess it was the Junior National and International sort of championships.
Yes.
Well, where was this held exactly?
So it was in Chicago, but not even like the nice part of Chicago. It was in the south side of Chicago. There was nothing there. But I will say the food there wasn't bad. You know, every time I go on these trips, I'm like such a New York City food snob. But over there, you know, we picked a couple of random restaurants, like way outside of Chicago, by the way. And, you know, I was like, oh, okay, you know, not so bad. You know, they take their cuisine pretty seriously over there.
Were you, was this like a protein-rich environment you were entering, or was it something different?
I mean, definitely. You know, we chose like a Turkish restaurant for that reason, so I could get chicken and this and that. Picked a barbecue place, went to an Italian thing, and you know, food was pretty good. So I was pretty happy about that. You know,
I thought you were going to go full steakhouse. That's why.
I did go steakhouse the first day.
Oh, nice.
But you know, when you're a New York City guy, it's very difficult to, you know, New York City, we have Keen's, you know, Club A, Peter. We got all that already. So it's you know.
Yeah, why do it again?
Yeah.
But so this is a big event.
Big event.
You know, everybody's going from around the country, and it's all youth, right? It's all juniors and, you know, kids and teens and, you know, all sorts of people.
Yep.
And this basically represents the pipeline, right, for the United States. So in some ways, it has a little bit of significance given the upcoming Olympics in a few years.
So there's a few events, you know, national level events for these kids. They have the Junior US Open, the Junior Nationals, the Junior Olympics, and they're held a lot of the times by different organizations, which kind of is confusing, but they all accumulate towards a national ranking system. And then that gives them the right to travel outside the country. And now the two main divisions we're talking about, mostly like the high level stuff, is the cadet and the IJF juniors. Cadet 17 under, IJF juniors 20 and under. So like those two have world teams that they can make. You can make a cadet world championship team, which is really, really competitive in the international circuit. And then you have a IJF world junior circuit as well, like a world championships, right? And that's another one that's extremely competitive. So this was serving as the trials for those events.
So when you look at like how big is the event? Like how big are the brackets? I imagine they're large, but
not that big. But I mean, like it depends on what you're comparing it to. You know what I mean? You go to like a youth baseball thing, and then you know you get tons of people playing. Right? It's not really like that, you know. And even compared to wrestling, it's a lot less. But there's 1,000 competitors there on the weekend, and you know it's very, very competitive. Like I said, you know, and the lighter the weight, you know, the more competitive, the heavier you go. Like the heavyweights in the cadet, usually not as many athletes, you know?
Right.
For obvious reasons.
I'm just a big boy and I'm young.
That's exactly right, yeah. That's where I shine back in the day.
Oh, right, yeah, that's where you're dominating. Yeah. Right, I guess this must also be sort of an interesting social event in a way, too, because you probably get a lot of people together that don't get to see each other that often, even at the sort of coach and instructor level.
So yeah, I walked around and doing interviews with all the guys who I used to compete with, and you know, every era has those champions, right? They stick around long enough, and the people who are competing with me, you know, I got to hang out with Aaron Cohen, Colton Brown was there, Chuck Jefferson, all these guys who were on the circuit together around the same time. Those guys are all bringing their kids now. They all have kids, so they have a judo program, they coach judo, they have a dojo, their kids are in the game. And you see a lot of that. And it's really nice to kind of catch up. It's a little bit like a time machine almost. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everyone's just a little grayer, a little bit, you know, a little bit more
grayer. Yeah. And I remember like seeing somebody that I saw, you know, back, this woman made the 92 Olympics, Grace. I saw her and I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you, you know, in 20 something years. And that was
Right.
kind of amazing. So, you go back there and it's like, blast from the past. And it feels like you're stepping into a time machine and going backwards almost. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. The only thing new is Smoothcomp. That's the only thing that's different.
So
Seriously,
now,
Smoothcomp, yeah.
I do want to ask, because this has come up in a few, like in passing, I
Yeah.
think, in a lot of different conversations that I've had and other people have had. And there are people who have only known sort of smooth comp organized events.
Yeah.
But what is the significance of smooth comp, and how do you, like, what was it pre versus post smooth comp?
Before it used to be like, even my era was a little bit more digitized. So it's like you have the match board. It's like what matches are coming up, and then you go out there, kind of a thing. But you almost had to, like, when I was in the 90s, it was a little bit more like, all right, this division is being fought on this mat, so you have to be in that region. So I knew 100 kilograms, under 17 had to be on mat number 3.
Right.
And then they have
Right.
all the brackets listed out, and it's these paper brackets that will be posted onto the wall, and you say, okay, I'm match number 4, I'm mat number 3. So you go there, and then they'll start calling, all right, on deck, whatever it is, and you go out there, and then you report to the table, hey, I just won that, because it wasn't automated through the digital scoreboard.
That seems like a good chance for some errors. Yeah, I won that. I definitely won that. You didn't see that match? I won that
That's
match.
happened multiple times. It's like, wait a minute, why am I fighting and getting called up for the losers bracket like in the constellations? I should be in the semis.
Right.
It's a whole thing, right? And then it gets confusing. The tournament director walks over. But now it's all on your phone. And all the brackets are there. And then the smooth comp system, they have like the care system where there's instant replay. So so they challenge it and they have the earpiece in. So someone threw someone, but it was like, did his back land? Did he have control? Was it a counter? We don't really know. And the coach was like challenging it. And then they say, go like this. And then they look at the instant replay and they have the earpiece and say, okay, this kid got the throw. And then when the winner is awarded, it automatically goes into the system and then puts the right person through on the bracket.
So this is almost recreating like a higher level competition in a way where you have the replay, you have all these tools at your disposal.
Yes.
It's got to be a good thing, right?
Oh, that's a great thing. That's a great thing. Because it's almost, back in the day, it was a lot more whoever's sitting in the coach's chair. All right. So, like, I would be going against guys from Jimmy Pedro's club or Jason Morris's club, and, those guys were Olympians, and, if they're the referee on the mat was, pro Jason or pro Jimmy, they might easily just be like, oh, he got the score, but there's no instant replay.
Right.
So you could yell and scream all you want, but it's like, there was very little that you could do. So you have to really be definitive. Now it's a little bit more, right? It takes
more
those
objective.
biases. Yeah. I mean, is it more objective? I don't really know.
Yeah. Well, at
A
least
lot
there's
less,
evidence.
Yes, definitely.
At least some kind of justification that means.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, so would you then say smooth comp, given the name of it, the competitions now are being more smoothly run?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And when you're gonna go, so it's like, hey, 10 a.m. you're gonna go. Around this, you're gonna go. You see all the matches coming up. Hey, you're on the board now. You have up in 5 matches, and then you could search by like your club competing. Where, by the way, I'm not being paid by Smooth Comp to say this at all.
Right.
But yes, it's, you kind of, even if you're a coach and you have multiple athletes, you kind of keep track of who's going when, and then just kind of be running around. And they do everything pretty professionally. I love that about judo. For instance, like, even as a coach, I haven't been to one of these in a long time.
Yeah.
So like, I forgot all the rules, and then the guy who was like in charge of the mat was like, hey, Shintaro, what's up, man? Nice to see you. Great to see you. I love what you're doing. And then I walk out there, and then I just sit down in the coach's chair, and they go, oh, you got to wait until the athletes bow on, and you have to bow, and then you have to bow to the other coach, And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot, And then he comes back 2 seconds later and says, you're not allowed to have a hat on in the oh, shoot, sorry, I took it off. He goes, Mr. Higashi Sensei, there's a dress code. You can't be wearing a shirt. You have to wear a judo shirt or a collared shirt if you're going to be in the coach's chair. I was like, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I'm going to run and get a shirt right after this. And he like let me slide. And then my guy goes out bound, starts gripping up. I'm like, all right, put your right hand on the collar. Come on, don't put your... Yeah. And they go, excuse me. You can't coach while the player's fighting. This is an IJF division. You can only coach in between action, kind of like tennis. And I was like, man, it's my first judo tournament. I'm so sorry. It was pretty funny getting lectured over here, But then I was like, all right. And then, I went and got the shirt. And then I was like, all right, yes, that's right. And then I followed all the thing. But it's great that there's a level of professionalism there, and they're enforcing it. And then, I just thought it was amazing that it makes you feel like you're in a professional setting. It was just great, man. I love all these things that they're doing.
Yeah, no, so maybe some of your IJF experience, you just got to bring that back to the local scene.
Yeah, they're doing it. They're doing it.
You could have just watched that. So
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of issues still with the organizations, and I went around talking to everybody. I'm interviewing people and this and that, and I hear what's going on in the rumor mill also, and it's very information dense, really. So really good stuff, interesting stuff. We'll get to that.
Right. I bet. Yeah. Let's get to the judo a little bit, though. Yeah. Because I'm assuming, although it was, I'm sure, a very nice reunion, this is the season for reunions, a lot of college reunions going on right now. Yeah. But beyond that, there are a lot of kids trying to fight for a place. Mm-hmm. So any memorable matches, any memorable interactions with the current athletes that are out there? I mean, I know you can't keep track of everybody.
Yeah.
But.
I mean, there's a few standouts. And mostly in my own kid's division, right? Not my child, but like when my student, Max, I'm coaching him, and he fights in the 60-kilogram cadet division and the IJF division. He fought both. And there is a spectacular rivalry that, USA Judo should do a better job promoting these guys and talking about it, because there really is no better thing for sport, really, right? The stories that are behind these athletes. Jonathan Yang was a world cadet champion last year in Peru. I was commentating that for the IJF. This kid is so good. He's a phenom. We've never had a cadet world champion before in the United States in the history of the judo, ever, right? This kid's so good. He graduates out of the cadets into the IJF, and he has a number 1 and 2 rivalry with Christopher Velasco, who is Herman Velasco's child. Herman Velasco was an outstanding athlete from Peru. I think he was an Olympian, world level player. Great. I competed around that time period when he was around. He was spectacular. And his son's now in the game, and they're constantly going back and forth. And they actually fought in April, and Velasco had beaten him. It's unbelievable. So they're in the division. Doug Tono's kid, Trent Tono's in the game, who's also spectacular, right? And then you have Adrian Cohen, who is Aaron Cohen's nephew, sorry. He's also spectacular. Now that those two kind of graduated out into the IJF, he's dominating the cadet division. Mm-hmm. So you have like 4 or 5 spectacular. And then there's also this Georgian kid, Parsadanian, another one, spectacular. So you have like 6 kids that are like super high level, world level guys. And you're watching it and you're like, am I watching? This isn't like a kid's judo thing. You get a Georgian guy doing Georgian-style judo, right? You have Adrian who wrestles and does judo at a very high level, does the kataguma. You have this kid, Velasco and Yang going at it. Great Sanagis, great lateral movement. Ashiwaza. They have like amazing judo, spectacular judo, right? And, my kid's in that division. He won, I think, 4 matches total over the weekend, between the 2 divisions. So he's not beating those kids yet. But he's definitely not at the bottom of the barrel either. So he really showed heart. Shout out to Max. He showed heart. He showed that he belongs there. And just watching that division unfold was really, really great for me. I was like, wow, I've never really seen this depth in a junior division in a long time. So that was one division. Can't really go through all the divisions, but Lenny Scheinfeld, 66, he just won U.S. Nationals, the adult nationals.
Right.
And he just won the junior nationals. This kid's another phenom. He lives and trains at Jimmy Pedro's. He's actually from Staten Island originally. This kid, Kai Wallace, 73. yeah. Kai Wallace, 73. Roddy Ferguson's son and daughter are in the game now. Really just, So like all the usual suspects and their kids are now in the game.
The second generation is
the second gen. Yeah. So, and what I noticed was a lot of these guys come from the main dojos. What is it? The Pareto principle, 80% of your results come from 20%.
20% of them, yep.
80-20. And it's really true. The top 20 dojos, top 20% dojos are producing 80% of the champions. I think what happens a lot of the times is they don't make it through because the judo career isn't as compelling as having a career in X, Y, and Z.
Right.
A lot of the times we lose these kids to wrestling. Like, what if Adrian Cohen, who's crushing it right now at 16, gets a wrestling scholarship and they offer him an NIL situation of, I don't know, $50,000 a year?
Yeah.
Well,
it's hard to
what
argue.
kid wouldn't take that? So like we're gonna lose him to that probably, right? Yeah. And then Jonathan Yang, he's a smart Asian kid. We're gonna lose him to medical school. That's been my joke all day. It's like, hey, we got to keep this kid out of medical school. I keep telling his dad. His dad's awesome. His dad's there with the camera.
Well, his dad is sold out for judo, though, isn't he? Kind of
loves it. Yeah.
So,
but come on, you're an Asian dad. You're gonna, all right, my kid is either gonna try to make an Olympic team or go to medical school. You know what I mean?
You never know, though. I mean, he's still young. His boys are still very young.
He's still young, yeah.
They can still chase that dream. They don't have medical school in their future quite yet.
There needs to be a compelling career, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't want to say make it about me, but there's a...
Why not?
I'm visible. These kids all know me now, which is really cool, right? And then it's like after the thing, Kai Wallace, everyone's talking about Kai. And I go to the podium and I'm like, all right, guys, if you want to be on my YouTube channel, come down here and, bullshit with me. And Kai's like, oh my God, it's like, it's amazing. This kid knows me, wants to be on my thing, and I get to talk to him.
Well, it's good for them too, because like you were saying, if USA Judo's not going to promote these guys for whatever reason, there may be reasons for that, but at least you can, help get these kids out there a little bit more in the sort of the general grappling sort of mind. And, people say, hey, I remember he did an interview with Shintaro, and now it's 3 years later, and he's trying to gear up and trying to get, on this Olympic team, like somebody to root for and somebody to support.
And what I think just kind of clicked is me being the young mind that I am,
You look young too, Shintaro.
Yeah, I look very young, yeah. Like I'm 20. But they say a lot of these young guys want to be YouTubers when they grow up. And that's a real career.
Huh.
Not like a real career by your Harvard education standards. Like you go to any public school and ask all the kids and poll them, what do you want to be when you grow up? YouTuber is a real answer. I hear it all the time. My kids' elementary school. Our friend Arjun's like, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a
generation gap situation.
Exactly, right? So now all these kids who have that mindset is like, oh, wait a minute, Shintaro's a YouTuber. He has 1 million views a month or whatever it is. Like that may be a career path. And then potentially I could talk them all out of go to college. Just do judo full time, right?
You can do YouTube and go to college, kids.
Yeah.
Just want to let you know.
No, but
even Shintaro went to college, guys.
I did.
Yeah. He has a master. He has an MBA. Don't take all this stuff.
But that's why maybe the reason why I'm not an Olympian. Maybe.
Oh, maybe.
Right? Yeah. But I think it's really cool that there's some superstars on that team, man. Sure, it's Daniel Lubimuski. He's like 100. He's training at Collins. He's great. He's crushing it. Some of these juniors are now so good that they're like uncontested. They come in and they walk and just steamroll everyone there.
Right.
And then they go into the adult divisions, and there's 27-year-old guys there that's been doing judo for 20 years, destroyed. Yeah. And I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, we just can't lose these kids.
It sort of does feel like wrestling, though. Like you got kids that have been wrestling since they were 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can't, like if your child started wrestling in high school, like you're just never going to catch those guys. There's just no way.
Yeah, it's tough.
And I'm sure
not to name drop, but like PJ Duke was a product of this judo stuff too. He was at a great wrestling club. He was doing judo his whole life with Leo Lopes. And now look at him. He's the biggest star right now. He just beat Yianni for the world team slot. Great judo. He was a product of this, tournament circuit, the judo circuit. And you see it in his wrestling. A lot of upper body stuff, a lot of foot stuff. Amazing.
I tried to get my son to do some judo, and he just, no, I'm just going to wrestle. I don't know, man. It could give you a little. It could give you a little flavor, a little different flavor, a little spice.
Yeah.
But what do I know? But hey, before we get into the talking solely about kind of the phenoms in the division, you did have your own student going there, and so I do wonder. Most of the kids there are like, they're not PJ Duke, they're not Jonathan Yang, they're not, they're not these guys that are sort of walking in and you sort of know who's going to be in the finals, right? But a lot of these kids go, and it's more of a development opportunity for them, right? Like they're good enough to get there, they're good enough to compete. They're not quite there. So as you're thinking about your own students or even other kids that are sort of in this situation, how do they use this experience to suck the most sort of juice out of that tournament, and sort of what do they take home with themselves to improve?
I think you as a coach have to know the kid also, right? And I know my program, and I know how it compares to every program in the country. From a competitive judo standpoint, you can't have kids doing judo once or twice a week and compete out to these things. So when they're like, I want to compete at this thing, it's like hard no. You train once a week, twice a week. You're gonna get injured. Right. No, my kid could do it. You're a great coach. It has nothing to do with your kid's abilities or me being a good coach or not. Your kid comes to judo once a week, he's gonna get injured, right? So that's you gotta take that off the table. We had a kid, Liam. He's like, I want to go, and I was like, okay, and he's good enough to be out there that he could take break falls, and he wasn't gonna win it, but this was a great experience thing for him, and he sort of has this mindset that he could go out there, see these guys, and he's gonna be like, you know what, next year, I'm not gonna. But if he had the mindset of like, oh man, if I lose and he gets discouraged and he's going to quit, if I thought that was an option, I'm doing that kid a disservice by putting him out there, right? I would have told him no. But because I know he's going to come back stronger, I know he's going to experience it, seeing those guys, being around those guys, he's going to see the level of it. And then he might ask the question, Shintaro, like, what do you think it's going to take for me to get there? And it's like, listen, man, you got to do judo 5 days a week. You got to lift, you got to run, you got to sleep right, eat right, all this stuff. And I think in the next year, he could kind of have a drastic, evolution to where he can potentially be out there and be a contender for a top 5 thing. So, like, you got to really look at that kid, And then, obviously, if it's in your backyard, like, if you're from the Chicago Midway area, might as well do it, just because it's no travel, right? It's like you're just going to be around it, maybe even go see it. Mm-hmm. So, you really have to kind of know yourself, know your athletes, and then kind of know the competition out there too, because there's some killers that could get injured, that could injure your kid.
Now that you've got these guys, the event's over, right? And these kids have come away with their different medals. What is the follow up to this?
The 20 and under, a lot of these kids are, there's always a crop of guys. Mm-hmm. They finish high school, they live at a training center, and that's all they do, right? Like. You know what I mean? So those guys are just training full time, Yeah. And if you made the team, you're probably going to be ramping up your training a little bit, doing some camps, doing some international events, maybe raising some funds. There's no shortage of stuff. You're going to be very busy. Just living a regular college life, it's not easy, I think.
Yeah. And are any of these kids sponsored by the athletic club?
Yes. Lenny is, Libamuski. I think Velasco is, Christopher Velasco is, and they get their trips in for. Actually, they're all coming on Wednesday to do a New York Athletic Club monthly workout on Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to see them again. I'm going to do the groundwork with them because my knee's still kind of recovering. And I spoke to a lot of coaches that there's issues like there should be a dedicated cadet coach that pushes them through to the IJF level, the junior level.
Right.
There should be a dedicated IJF, and then it kind of pushes them through, so there's kind of a handoff, and everyone knows.
Right.
And there's continuity in their careers, and I'm thinking about going to college. No. Right, and just guiding them through the pipeline.
You're going to the Olympics, and you're going to be a YouTuber.
It would be nicer to see like more collaboration, and I think the biggest issue is money. Really, it comes down to, and
it always does.
you need to raise the funds, and you need to have someone, driving the ship, a CEO that's going to raise money, and then have that, and then, earmark it for certain things to develop. But I get it. Running a national sporting organization, it's not always about just the athletes, right? Because when you get a USA Judo membership, majority of the people that pay into that thing, they're buying it for insurance purposes. Right?
Yeah.
It acts as an insurance for the clubs and the athletes. You get injured, right? It's like a secondary insurance plan, so to speak,
Yeah.
And then they provide certain experiences and services, like coming to these events, organizing these things. Just having these athletes have a very successful competitive career is not their only goal. It's only a small piece of it. So, I kind of get it.
You would think it would be, but it's not. Yeah.
It's definitely not.
Yeah.
And, everyone is very outspoken about it. Should be all about the athletes. The athletes should make money. Yes, they should, but they can't even keep their lights on. They can't. They got a staff of 5, and, they're all barely making minimum wage, and they're volunteering all their time going to these things. You have to be somewhat empathetic about that.
Yeah.
But it's like you got to get the right people in there. We got to do a part and vote. The whole political thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of brewing there. That's for a whole nother day.
Yeah, I was about to ask, it sounds like you had a lot of conversations, and is there anything you wanted to share here, or are you saving that for
No, I'm not saving anything for anywhere, for that open book. But I definitely do want to help to some capacity, but I don't want to do something, sit on a board, and nothing gets done, and it's a waste of my time, it's a waste of their time. That's the last thing I want to do, right? But if I could sort of have the most amount of impact and the least amount of time that I could put into this thing and help them, For instance, I was kind of like thinking this morning, before we were gearing up for this thing, sending an email to Corinne, the CEO, and saying, hey, put me in charge of fundraising. Let me just fundraise.
Yeah.
Right? I'll take a small percentage. That'll compensate me for my time. I live in New York City. There's a lot of people who are somewhat wealthy.
Right.
Let me just raise funds for you guys,
Right.
And then kind of like start the dialogue there. And people are willing, and I had this conversation with Jimmy Pedro, and he's like, people are willing to give. I know so many rich people, millions of dollars. They're just out there for the taking. They just don't trust how it's going to be used.
That's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
That's a huge problem. Yeah.
So it's like I want to kind of be involved, but I don't want to get dragged into this bureaucratic thing of like just this and that and playing politics and nothing really gets done. It's kind of like what's going on now with just everything. It's the problem of everything, literally.
Yeah.
At least with what I'm doing, it's like I know I could teach a technique. These kids are going to see it and win championships with it. They come up to me and say, hey, I learned that Uchimata from you. Thank you. And I get this validation, the immediate impact on the judo community. And it's very fulfilling. But being dragged into the world of that might be tough. But I'm always thinking about how I can help everyone.
Yeah, it's interesting because now we're talking about more like institutional factors and I'm sure people have tried to like sidecar or almost independently sort of create institution and and fund like resources to sort of help things along, but it's always hard though when you do that, when you're outside kind of the system.
Yes,
things can get kind of messy, right?
There's a guy in the judo board now his name is Joe Reagan, and he seems like a very good guy, and he raised his own, I think he put in like 200 grand of his own money into the program. He's like, I want to sit on the board. Here's 200 G's, let's make this thing happen. And he is very well connected in the business world,
Right.
But if he can't raise the funds and put it in and then blow the thing up, what chance do I have of that?
Yeah, right.
So, I don't know what needs to get done, how it needs to be done. There's partially, my opinion is that we need more full-timers, I think.
Yeah.
Is the biggest thing. And then you see the top 20% dojos who are crushing it. And you talk to like the Max Kafka, who has 400 students. Aaron Cohen, who has 400 students, something like that. Colin has 300 students. All these guys who have mega dojos all over the country.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's the people who do it part-time, who have 40 people, who could barely pay the rent, but they do it because they love it, and then bring 2 or 3 guys to these events.
Yeah.
We need more full-timers. We got to take the part-time guys and say, look, this is the path to get to a 200-person dojo. Quit that shitty 9 to 5 and be a full-time YouTuber like me. Don't go to college.
Yeah,
right?
just go to business school. Just get a master's degree.
Yeah, and then those guys who have the 200-300 students in the gyms can help other gyms to get there, and those guys should be sort of in the game trying to push USA Judo forward. We just need more full-time guys, I believe. And you know, Colton did this last year. Colton was on the board for a year and a half or so, and he little by little got a little bit like, oh man, am I really making an impact here? I don't know if I'm just spinning my wheels. I don't know if I can. And then he stepped away.
Yeah.
Right.
I
you know,
that.
with him, maybe a couple guys just like him can kind of be on it at the same time. But, you know, I think it's very tricky when it comes to political stuff and people like, you know, it's just
it's sort of a vicious
beings.
cycle. You know, it's either a virtuous cycle or a vicious cycle. And if everybody is sort of if you don't have the critical mass, you don't have the sort of, you know, the revenues coming in and then, you know, it's like, okay, well, who are you getting to run the show? Again, this is, I don't know the organization. I don't know the people or anything. I'm just saying, you know, you can have a situation where, you know, you're not attracting the best people potentially, right? Because there are different things dictating, you know, outcomes. So I think it's common for a lot of different sports, right? Like if you're a monopoly, you don't have the market discipline, so you can waste a lot of resources just doing random stuff. I mean, look at you know, Major League Baseball. You know, is one organization that's a monopoly. Like so, they don't really have like there is no other baseball that's competing with them, so they can sort of make a lot of errors and not really feel the sting.
Yes, for sure.
Now. That's Major League Baseball. That is like America's pastime. But if you're talking about judo, and you've mentioned it many times, that you know, there's only so many paying members. Yeah. Right. Yeah. In a country
and there's
as
three
large,
organizations. I think there's four now.
Four.
USJ Judo Federation, USJA Association, and now there's like AAU. So there's like four different organizations fighting over the same peanuts, you know. It's really, really bad. And I think someone needs to first and foremost just merge all of it together. A lot of these guys are sitting on double boards, you know. As was I. I was part of a committee for the New York State Judo. I was a committee for the Hudson Judo. Yeah. You know, two separate organizations, but usual suspects.
Same membership. Yeah.
Usual suspects. And it's like, which one should I get? And back in the day, they were honoring both, right? If you had one, you could have the other. They kind of broke that off. Whatever. And it's like really... You know, someone needs to do it. I don't know if it's me. If anyone who's listening who has big ideas, you know, but I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing the ideas too.
Yeah.
You know, people come up to me all the time like, hey man, you have the reach. You got to put the ideas out there. You got to do this. And okay, you know, come talk to me. And then it's like, I have all these ideas. You can do this. You can do that. But it's like, you know, unless
people, there's got to be a mechanism that connects the action with the idea. Like a lot of people, ideas are a dime a dozen, right?
Yes,
but
for sure.
How do you turn that idea, and what is the trail of breadcrumbs that takes you from idea to execution? And a lot of people skip that part of the process. And if there's no, you know, direct line between idea and execution, it's very hard.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to sit on a board next year, and then I'll just like, you know, put together a slate and then make a full throttle run at it and use all my channels to push and vote and this and that. Maybe.
Just lay waste. We'll lay waste to the judo landscape. I like it.
Who knows, man? But, you know, it was really nice seeing everybody, you know, just being out there. Long days, but great. And my athletes went out there hard and competed. And, you know, one kid had like a dislocated toe.
Oof.
And then, you know, I think his father wanted to pull him out. But I was like... You know,
tape it up.
It's a pinky toe, you know.
Yeah.
And then he fought the next day, and you know, it was good. It was good. It was a great experience for all of us. So speaking to a Russian guy, Aram Grigorian or Grigashvili or something, one of those guys, and he runs a judo club in California. And I said to him casually, "It seems like you have a lot of students, you know.
Yeah.
How many you got?" He goes, "I have 800."
What?
I was like, what did you just say? He goes, 800 students, he said he has.
Wow.
So why are we studying this guy and what he's doing? And why isn't he like the center of this thing? You know?
Yeah. That's amazing.
You know what I mean? It's like Aaron Cohen, how many guys did you bring to this tournament? 10, 15?
Yeah.
He's like, guess. You know, I was like, 30? He's like, higher. He brought 95 kids to that tournament.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and if you have 1,000 students, that's like 1/10 of the kids there are his students.
Right. Right.
Why, give him an award, give him something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's insane, dude.
Yeah. I mean, granted, he's from Chicago, so it makes it a little bit easier, but still, what a...
Cut it in half. Give him a,
man, we gotta learn from these guys. We gotta learn. Everyone in the dojo landscape should have 100 students minimum. And if everyone had 200, 300 students, now all of a sudden you got something here, And I think that should be the priority always for the USA Judo, to help dojos have more students, get more students, double the membership, double everything, right? And that's what my platform would be when I'm a judo politician.
Well, it is funny because, you talk about the role of government and all that kind of stuff and, sort of taking on risks that other people don't want to take. It is interesting because this is not like a 1 year, 2 year, even 4 year problem. I feel like this is like a generational problem to grow judo to the level at which, that it corresponds to the size of the country. I think that is the work of a generation, maybe two, right? Because Jimmy, how long has Jimmy been working on this type of stuff?
Jimmy Pedro?
Jimmy Pedro, a long time, right?
Long time, but he was never he just recently ran. He didn't get voted in.
Yeah, yeah.
And, he probably was the right guy, but there's a lot of people out there who think that, he just wants to control everything, and then they're a little bit worried to give one person so much power because, you look at the economics of judo with gis and mats and tournaments. Jimmy's sort of the king of that. Yeah. So it's like, we're going to give this guy more power, and I think that's what freaked a lot of people out. But to me, who's relatively close to Jimmy and who I truly believe, he cares about judo.
Yeah.
I think he would have been great for that job, But
he's not going to be there forever either. I mean,
no,
he can be at Fuji forever, but he can't be the head of USA Judo forever. Right?
Dude, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the guy.
I don't mean to laugh. That's it could be the right thing. It could be the
maybe
right
I'm the judo messiah, dude, right? Maybe what
you got
what
the
if,
hair
right?
for it. You got the hair for it for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard.
I walk in, new rules. Everyone has to bow when I walk into the venue.
They have to bow to your picture in the office, even if you're not around.
That's right.
I like it.
That's right.
We might as well. You bow, enter door. Just bow as you enter the office. I like it.
But I was so inspired. When I go to these trips, I always try to work out minimum once when I get to the hotel. Whether it's before the competition, international tournaments, because of the jet lag, it's usually easier to wake up early.
Yeah.
So I almost always go first thing in the morning. If it's U.S. time, I usually don't go first thing in the morning, but I try to get at least one. But both days, I was there, it's Friday, Saturday, right? We left on Sunday. Both days after the competition, I was fired up. After a heavy, greasy, disgusting meal, I was so nauseous, wanted to puke, but I was like, you know what? I'm choking back, the steak.
As you are now.
Went to the gym and worked out twice, man. It was it was great. And I was so fired up, thinking about, remember back when I was so hungry,
Right.
And just thinking about it, and then the sky's the limit,
Right.
And I was joking about with some kids, yo, what's next? Dream big is the thing I was telling these kids, and I was like, not all of them, but some of them. We were just having a private conversation. I was like, listen, man, forget medical school. You're going to be an Olympic gold medalist. You're going to be a billionaire, right?
Right.
And you're just going to be everything you've ever wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's having that when you're 20 years old, the mindset of the dreams and hopes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Billionaire Olympic gold. That's what you want to be, right?
Have it all.
But it was nice to remember back to that, and then seeing these kids who have the light in their eyes, and then you see some of the older guys who have been in it and still trying to do it, and you're like, oh man, give it up, man.
Yeah, time has. Yeah, there's a time for everything. There's a time for everything.
Some people still can do it. I saw Mark Fletcher, who's in great shape. He's 50 now, but he could still win at the senior level.
That's amazing.
I know.
I would love to be him.
So, and I was like, you got any knee pain, shoulder pain? He goes, nothing. And he's 250.
And then he just pointed at his bicep, right?
He's humongous. So, guy, when he says, I'm considering and making a comeback, I'm like, God bless you, go for it,
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, when you're after 40, I want to come back, make a comeback for the Olympics. I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's a hard job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered your exciting trip down both memory lane and a glimpse into the future of USA Judo. And I'm sure you're going to be having a lot more conversations about this because I think it's just, we're ramping up to that next Olympic competition. And it's got to be on people's minds for the next few years. Sure, it's not going anywhere.
And big thanks to everyone who came up and said hi to me. Just so much positive feedback from the community. Kids taking pictures, and some people were much shyer than others, and some people were not, unrelenting. But but most 99.9% of the interactions were amazing. I really don't mind it. So if you're out in the tournament scene and you see me, don't hesitate. Come up and say hi. I'll take a picture with you. I'll shake your hand. And I'm usually in a good mood at these things.
Yeah, soft spot for children. If you're like in your 30s and 40s, forget it. Don't even bother asking. I'm joking. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it till next time.
Yep.
Thank you, Shintaro.
Thank you, David.
Yep. Bye-bye.